What is the use of having Lewis Hamilton on your team if the car is not able to keep the asphalt? Ferrari has admitted the unthinkable. His brand new SF-25 is broken from the concept. How is it possible that the team with more Formula One history is repeating such basic errors? Today I explain it to you. Internally, Ferrari promised to have learned from the mistakes of the past. An almost complete redesign of the car, with Loic Serra, one of the most reputed engineers of paddock, declaring that 99% of the components had been modified with respect to SF-24. The approach was aggressive, ambitious, and deeply technical. It was not small evolutions but an integral revolution in each part of the car. New suspensions, redesign of aerodynamic channels, reviewed thermal management, and a radical change in mass distribution. All aimed at maximizing the interaction between chassis and aerodynamics under the demands of the new regulation. But the enthusiasm in Maranello's laboratories contrasted with the uncertainty that soon began to be perceived from the first kilometers on the track. From the preseason tests in Bahrain, the times were not very conclusive, and what should be a progressive adaptation quickly became a struggle to understand a car that did not respond to its own calculations. The wind tunnel data did not match what the track showed. What in the simulator looked as a jewel of modern engineering, in reality was a temperamental vehicle, difficult to adjust, and very sensitive to external conditions such as temperature, fuel load, or level of rubber in the asphalt. The disappointment soon arrived. The Australia Grand Prix, the first calendar event, offered the first real sample of the limitations of the SF-25. Despite classifying in the fourth row with both pilots, the rhythm in the race was inconsistent. Hamilton, visibly uncomfortable, spent most of the time trapped behind slower cars, without attack capacity, while Leclerc struggled to maintain the stability of his car under changing track conditions. Complaints began to leak: equilibrium problems, a very narrow configuration window, and a clear lack of correlation between simulation and real performance. Ferrari had opted strong and, at least at this start of the season, seems to have lost. Not due to lack of talent, because both Hamilton and Leclerc are more than capable, but because the car does not meet the expectations that they themselves were responsible for feeding. The coup was double. Not only because of the poor results but for the fact that internally the team began to suspect that they were not facing a passing problem, but against a structural weakness in the very concept of SF-25. And that, in Formula One, is a difficult wound to close in full competition. As the first races of the 2025 season advanced, the problems of SF-25 ceased to be simple suspicions and consolidated as a technical crisis without palliative. What Ferrari presented as a revolution in design began to reveal a series of structural errors that go far beyond fine adjustments or lack of filming. We are facing a car that was born unbalanced, victim of engineering decisions that, although bold, have ended up destabilizing the delicate balance between mechanics and aerodynamics. One of the critical points is the rear suspension. Ferrari opted for a pull rod architecture, a configuration that, on paper, should improve the curve response and reduce the suspended weight. However, the rigidity of the system is not enough to withstand the dynamic loads experienced by the car at high speeds. This forces the team to raise the height of the car, sacrificing one of the most vital factors in modern aerodynamic performance: soil efficiency. And in an era where aerodynamic load is largely generated by soil effect, this decision compromises the general performance of the vehicle drastically. In the circuits with high-speed curves, where the car needs to stay as well as possible to the asphalt to generate aerodynamic load, the SF-25 fails. Vertical instability causes violent rebounds, a phenomenon known as bottoming out, which not only harms the speed of curve, but also excessively wears the wooden table of the flat background. This is not just a loss of time by return, it is a regulatory problem. The disqualification of Lewis Hamilton in the China Grand Prix for excessive wear in that area is the most concrete evidence that the design has exceeded the limit of the acceptable. In addition, there is an alarming disconnection between what the car promises in the simulator and what it delivers on the track. In controlled environments, the SF-25 seems competitive, but when it is time to roll in real conditions, engineers face an indomitable car. This has forced the team to work outside its optimal setup window, adopting compromise solutions that harm more than they help. It is not uncommon to see Ferrari sacrificing peak speed to try to gain some stability in curve, or vice versa, losing traction in order to improve the passage through medium curve. Part of the origin of this technical disconnection dates back to the redesign of the suspension arms, modified with the intention of maximizing the potential of the new aerodynamic concept. But these changes ended up breaking the harmony that existed between the mechanical and aerodynamic elements of the SF-24, a car that, although not perfect, offered a stable platform to work on. Instead, SF-25 seems to have been built on a new concept without having completely verified its viability in real conditions. Ferrari wanted to innovate, but in the process he has lost control of the dynamic behavior of the car. The most worrying thing is that these types of problems are not solved with a new spoiler or a software update. We are talking about the need to review the structural foundations of the car. Suspension geometry, distribution of weights, torsional stiffness of the chassis, and correlation between virtual and real data. All this while competing every 2 weeks and faces rivals who have managed to maintain a logical and effective evolution of their technical concepts. The feeling in the paddock is clear. Ferrari is fighting a car that does not understand. And in a sport where every thousandth being out of tune with your own car is the perfect recipe for failure. The consequences of the technical failure of the SF-25 are no longer simple future possibilities. They are a reality that is modeling the present and committing the immediate future of Ferrari. In a category such as Formula One, where every detail can make the difference between victory and ridicule, operate with a conceptually defective car is not a bump, it is a catastrophe. The impact is not limited only to track performance. It extends to the internal environment of the team, the credibility of its technical direction, the confidence of its pilots, and the perception of the entire structure within the competitive ecosystem of the F1. From the outset, the Builder Championship begins to move away. While rivals such as McLaren and Mercedes accumulate points regularly, Ferrari has wasted key opportunities, not for strategy errors or specific incidents, but for pure technical disability. The career rhythm is irregular, the strategies must be improvised to compensate for an unpredictable car, and on weekends they become containment exercises rather than real victory attempts. The podiums are transformed into distant goals, and the points become consolation awards. But even more serious is the deterioration of the relationship between pilot and machine. Lewis Hamilton, in his second Grand Prix dressed in red, has shown that talent is still intact. His speed and adaptation flashes have been evident, but even he, a 7-time world champion, cannot compensate for a car that does not behave coherence. Hamilton's frustration is not just professional, it is symbolic. He arrived in Ferrari with the promise to build a legacy, but instead he is rowing against a project that, for now, drowns in his own design. Charles Leclerc is not immune either. It has been the flag bearer of the Scuderia for years, and this new chapter should represent the consolidation of its status as leader of the team. However, tensions have begun to emerge. In China, a slight touch with Hamilton damaged his front wing, forcing him to continue the race with an unbalanced car. Although he managed to adapt to that circumstance, the situation was a perfect reflection of the moment Ferrari lives. Even the small errors are magnified because there is no margin of technical maneuver to correct them. From the wall, the atmosphere is containment. Loic Serra, Frederic Vasseur, and the entire coaching staff are under a pressure that grows to each race. Internally, research lines have been opened to partially redesign the suspension system and forward aerodynamics, but that implies months of development. In F1, time is the most valuable resource, and Ferrari runs the risk of losing a whole season while trying to repair a car that perhaps should never have been born with this concept. What worries most is that there is no immediate solution. Palliative adjustments can improve tense, but do not solve the root of the problem. To correct the deficiencies of the SF-25, the chassis would almost redirect, which is unthinkable without severely compromising the resources of the 2026 project, a year in which, in addition, new regulations will enter into force. Ferrari, then, is trapped in a paradox. Fixing the present could cost the future. And if this situation has made something clear, it is that Ferrari must not only rebuild his car, he must also rebuild his technical vision, his process of validation of concepts, and, above all, his culture of internal decisions. Otherwise, it will continue to be trapped in a cycle of grandiloquent promises and disappointing realities. Because ultimately, no star signing, no spectacular redesign, and no marketing campaign can hide what has already become evident to all. Ferrari still does not find the way. This is the raw truth. Ferrari has stumbled again with the same stone, but this time the blow is stronger because the expectations were even higher. In a season where everything seemed to align for a historic comeback, the arrival of a champion like Lewis Hamilton, an almost total redesign of the car, a technical direction that promised renewal, the result has been a painful fall that resonates throughout the grill. It is not simply not being in the fight for the championship. It is about having built a car that is not up to the shield that it represents, which does not allow to fight even on equal terms, which forces to compromise every aspect of the performance for the simple fact that the base concept is not well founded. Beyond the numbers of lost points or positions in the table, What is really at stake here is Ferrari's prestige. The Scuderia is not any team. It is the most powerful symbol in the history of Formula One. And when even with the talent of pilots like Leclerc and Hamilton you cannot stay in the fight, the wound is deep, and the recovery will be long. Because this is not only a matter of technique, but of trust. Trust of engineers in their own process, of the pilots in the car they drive, and of the fans in which their team will be where it deserves to be. The question that now floats in the air is direct and brutal. Can Ferrari really save this season, or are we facing another year lost for a team that takes too long trapped between unfulfilled promises and reboots that do not take any place? Will Ferrari dare to recognize that his current concept has failed and redirect resources to deep evolution, even if that means renouncing 2025 as a competitive season? We want to know what you think. Do you think Ferrari must continue to develop the SF-25 and trust that its mid-year solutions can reverse the situation? Or is it time to focus on 2026 and accept that this year is lost? Leave your opinion, and if you have come here, subscribe to continue exploring the technical truth behind each team, each decision and each race. Because here, every thousandth matters.